because that was really the perfect introduction for our talk in a wider framing for how decentralized currencies are actually being put to work in different emerging economies. I'm really excited to talk to you about how we're using the free permissionless distribution of money to really impact people on the ground in last mile communities that are currently underserved by traditional financial systems. I am here as the executive director of a project called Good Dollar. Good Dollar is a universal basic income protocol whose mission is actually to enable anyone with access to a smartphone, with a cell phone, to be able to access decentralized currencies and actually onboard into crypto. We do this through distributing a digital universal basic income every day, and that's helped us onboard nearly 1 million people. I am thrilled to be joined here today with Njoroge, who is the director of grassroots economics, which is, I would say, probably one of the leading projects, if not the leading projects, that's actually innovating with decentralized currencies and really breaking the monopoly on money in terms of helping communities to create more credit, more commerce bottom up through using decentralized tooling, and it's a great example of Ethereum in the real world. I will say that I've been building in this space for a long time, and it makes me very excited to see the talk that came before, if you will, that really shows that this progress is happening at scale. And Njombi is, I'd say, the zoom in, the double click in as to the framing that we just saw. So some of you guys might have seen, crypto is useless. Some of you guys might have seen this tuk-tuk yesterday or seen some people walking around with a crypto is useless hat. And the idea here is actually a very clever campaign out of Cello, which is that crypto is useless unless you've had a real need to use it. And the meta framing for all of this is that there are still 1.7 billion people around the world who are living in countries where inflation outpaces wages. If the past few years have been any indication, that's going to continue to increase. There are 1.4 billion adults around the world that remain unbanked. That means people who have no access to any of the financial services that Joseph just mentioned in terms of savings, payments, credit, etc. Most of this 1.4 billion people have access to a very magic computer that they carry around in their phones, which is a smartphone, and that's what enables them to access the same Ethereum virtual machine that we all use. And so there's the 6.17 million crypto owners today represents a big gap to close in terms of where crypto still has its biggest potential to make a real impact on the financial lives of billions around the globe. We're here to talk about decentralized economic opportunities. So what are some of the principles that we're looking at? The first is permissionless access. So how are we actually removing gatekeepers? Crypto is the most obvious example of that. Anyone can sign up for a Web3 wallet. Anyone can send or receive currency. It is this permissionlessness that actually enables local empowerment to happen bottom up, where communities are able to grow in their own super cycle, if you will, and ultimately this is designed to drive resiliency and adaptability for economies that, where it doesn't really make sense that the global macroeconomic shocks of, say, the US presidential election have such a big effect on last mile farmers or communities all around the world. And so this is designed to actually increase resilience so that there's less of a single point of failure for individuals and communities. The reality is that still today, it's places where capital is needed the most, that capital is the most expensive. This comes as no surprise to anyone here from the real world Ethereum track. But in Nigeria, just for context, for a $100 to $1,000 loan, you're looking at an annualized interest rate from anywhere from 30 to 50%, right? So if you're actually looking to start a small business, it means that money is more expensive for you than it is for many of us from the United States or from Europe. And the user experience has also kept crypto adoption from happening for a number of reasons, right? So Up until very, very recently, it's been very hard to access Web3 in terms of the sign-up process for a wallet. Certainly, if you don't have access to a bank account, it's not that simple to go online and buy $100 of Bitcoin on Binance. All of this results in there being a very high cost of experimentation for individuals. And this is what creates this narrative around crypto being useless, right? Is that with all these challenges facing the space, it's hard to build products that seem like they're of real use. However, in 2024, we're facing a new reality where not all of our problems have been solved, but certainly the potential exists to make a massive change. We see that there are a number of simple mobile native solutions. There are over 100 million stablecoin holders around the world. This has probably been seen as one of the key killer use cases of crypto today. And this creates the preconditions for us to really begin to build for real communities and real needs. All of this is critical because everything happening on-chain, everything happening transparently, actually improves our odds for financial access because it enables individuals and communities to really build credit history in a transparent way. As we just discussed, it's actually lower middle income countries that are driving crypto adoption today. So India, Nigeria, Indonesia are the fastest growing crypto markets, and 15 of the 20 fastest growing markets come from low income countries. And unsurprisingly, it's decentralized systems and currencies that are leading the way. This is most likely because of leapfrog innovation, which was referenced before, where when there's no pre-existing technology to overcome, people just jump directly to the next generation. And so grassroots economics, which has been building in this space for a long time, I consider one of the flagship leapfrog innovations in the space because they're innovating both on the payment rails and fintech level, but most importantly on the currency and the monetary level in terms of really breaking the monopoly on money and how communities can create their own value, create their own creditworthiness, and actually expand the amount of economic activity that they're doing within the community. This is where crypto has its biggest potential, and it's my true pleasure to introduce Njoroge, who has been building this and implementing this on the ground for actually nearly 100 communities, and she's flown here today from Kenya to tell us about her work and some of the impact that it's had on their communities.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, my name is Njoroge. I have been working for Grassroots Economics Foundation for the last 6 years, and I'm really happy to be here. I am an advocate for community inclusion currencies, for poverty eradication and sustainable development. So, how do we heal a post-colonial legacy of torn communities and ecosystem? How do we enable communities to create scale and scale credit? How does this enable wealth creation to stay within the communities? This commitment pooling. We've been working on commitment pooling, which is an economic protocol inspired by indigenous wisdom. So when I talk about indigenous wisdom, I mean rotation of labor association. I come from the Kikuyu community in Kenya, and we call it Mwethia. We have so many communities in Kenya with very different names for this indigenous practice. And it's not just in Kenya, it's even global. What you're looking at, the pictures here, the first one is a type of a rotation of labor, an educational kind of it. That is a service, Mwethia, women grinding maize for flour. That is an infrastructural kind of Mwethia, and there's so many. Okay? This is the difference of what was and what is now. So what was the shared economic commons? You know, we had synergetic commitments, harmonious flows, accountable systems, you know, ecosystem regeneration, democratic stewards, unlike what we have now, you know, the fiat dominance, open markets, etc. Now, in communities right now, they have these 6 assets. For them to understand they have the 6 assets and to understand at what level these assets are is very important, and that is what you're doing with communities now. And what this image here is them realizing that they have it. Like, I have what you don't have, and you can benefit from one another. Creating that wealth is really visualizing what they can and what they have to offer one another. Now, I was talking about rotation of labor associations. So this is all about making commitments, fulfilling commitments, and accepting commitments. So just to explain rotation of labor in a bit, this is family 1, family 2, and family 3. All the families have needs. You know, they need a house built, they need a farm fixed, you know. So what they do, they create commitments backed by, commitments, and then they say, okay, fine, I'm committing, I will come and help build a house for family 1. I'm also committing that I will also help family 2 build a house. And eventually, they pool their commitments together, okay? So those are pooled commitments. So that means when I make commitments, I will accept commitments and I will also fulfill commitments. So when they all fulfill commitments, they are allowing accountability and exchange, and they have a clear and known agreed upon rules, okay? So, so eventually when they do a cycle of helping one another, you know, giving commitments, accepting commitments and fulfilling commitments, there is a range of physical assets grown, social assets grown, human, spiritual, political, and natural assets, you know, they change. Now, Grassroots Economics Foundation has been helping formalize these commitments by adding technology. And now it becomes easier for me to value what I'm offering in a community. It's easier because they have a unique signature. There is an expiration date. You can decide to have a demurrage or not, but a demurrage is very important to help with the circulation of the vouchers. And then it also means that whoever accepts that voucher has the right to redeem it from the issuer. Okay? Now, making commitments and fulfilling commitments and accepting commitments is paramount. And this is what used to happen and is now what you're advocating for. But trust is very important. And this is how trust was grown then. This is a nice illustration. We do a lot of games and practicals when you go when you're training communities. And this is how they understand the current reality, by understanding the 6 assets and at what level is which asset. And when they do this, they're able to come up with a vision and know how each person, each action step will be worked on according to the rotation of labor associations. Now, this is production financing. This is also a very important protocol that we've borrowed from our forefathers. It only means that when the community members create vouchers, they put them into the pool. And when a financier wants to get some of the products that are backed by these vouchers, they will need to put in money into the pool and pull out vouchers. I'm going to give a good example of a financier who pre-ordered coconuts from farmers in Kilifi. So what they did, they put in money into the pool and took the vouchers backed by the coconuts. Coconuts take 5 to 7 years to grow. So that means so the financier had the money prior, and the vouchers prior, and the community members got the money before. So that means they were able to sort out issues, fees, you know, better farming methods, better tools. So we're just basically bringing a nice socioeconomic process, you know, that is about bringing together a nice blend of, you know, changing the traditional demand and supply models and, you know, tokenization. Now, this is what the communities in Kenya are doing. They're using the USSD, and there's also the web interface. So this is mostly, the web interface is mostly for those who do not have smartphones, phones, so they can create their own paper wallet, and they can use one phone. Now, we have so far seen over 65,000 households using vouchers in Kenya today. We have 4 million plus worth of transactions, USD worth, and 5x average multiplier effect. So, pooled commitments enable us to scale into the future to our beautiful shared heritage. Thank you.
And so this came up in the talk right before, but it's actually how do we use these systems rather to create new trust, but actually to unlock trust that actually already exists on the ground. And this is what I've admired the work that Grassroots and Njombe have been doing for so many years now, is actually looking bottom up from the community infrastructure and developing tooling that actually enables those communities to unlock and assess value in new ways. Excitingly, this is one example of, I believe, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands that are happening around the world in terms of communities that are beginning to build circular economies using decentralized currencies that actually enable people to create their own value. This is a circular economy image from a community in Brazil that has hundreds of women that actually operate using the Good Dollar token as a community store to buy and sell services. We also have great examples of different entrepreneurs around the world who are using decentralized currencies bottom up to create airtime shops, enabling people to use crypto to swap into mobile minutes, into airtime value, which actually is a basic need for anyone living in the contemporary world. And I think really critically, the reason why this is relevant and relevant now is because now we start to compose the full stack that actually enables this to become practical and possible, and it involves more than just technology, right? And so what we see is that building the stack bottom up from the technical layer, what makes it actually useful for real people, for the hundreds of people that Njombe and Grassroots have touched, is actually the social element, the community and education element that actually brings people along and customizes these technologies for their needs. So to bring it back, crypto is useful, but it's most useful in an ecosystem that has all of the different components of the stack that make it useful. And so this suit that I'm wearing is not just for fun. It is fun, though. It's to represent the idea of an ecosystem and the value of an ecosystem, and that actually being the critical enabling linchpin to making the real world Ethereum useful. And I think everyone at Devcon who's made such an expert effort to come here to actually contribute to this ecosystem understands that. And the more localized ecosystems that we develop, the more we will see this come true. So yes, this is the crypto today. Real world Ethereum is decentralizing economic opportunity. And I think we need to stay passionate and stay focused because this is still the biggest upgrade to money since it went digital. We see decentralized economies actually upgrading the money itself, and it enables money to flow back to the parts of the economy that are otherwise deemed unprofitable or non-profitable. And this is what Grassroots and other projects are doing. It actually enables the real wealth to come back into community, because in many communities around the world, the people are there, the resources are there, the desire to collaborate is there, but what's actually missing is money. And so if we can actually innovate on the money itself through using the right tooling, then we are able to support the decentralization of economic opportunity that we want to see happen. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you to the Ethereum Foundation for making this possible.
All right, awesome guys. So again, Q&A session, we have the QR code on the screen. Scan it and send the question to the screen so we can see what you have burning question here. All right, guys. Let's see, I think people just wait a little bit. People are still scanning. I think we have about a few minutes while we're waiting for them to send the question. Anything you want to say, add on a little bit?
Yeah, just.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, there's something else I wanted to add, like for the pooling, the production financing page. When you put in money, community members can now withdraw that, off-ramp that via Valora, Minipay, through Kotani, one ramp, phone bank into Kenya shillings. So it's really been amazing. And I would also want to thank Ethereum Foundation for making sure that I got here. Thanks.
All right. You have a question? All right. Do you mind pass the mic? 1 second. Oh, here's the question. But let's hear from the ladies first.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for calling me lady. I'm not sure I identify that way, but sure.
Sorry.
It's okay. So, Jembi, this is a question for you. What are the biggest barriers that are still faced? Because you've obviously had to overcome quite a few to get the technology in place to support these existing traditional systems. What are the barriers that still exist, if any, in utilizing technology in this way?
Yeah, so one of the major barriers that we've had to, we are still even experiencing right now is the network connectivity in some of the rural areas. So when they are trying to sort of exchange into the swap, so network connectivity in some areas really is a challenge, and we normally sometimes have to force them to go to the nearest cyber cafe or, the nearest school, because we're assuming that is where they would get like network. So movement challenges, and yeah, I would say that is like one of the major, and really smartphones in some rural areas. So we've had to like even give a group like one phone where they need to like log out, log in using the paper wallets. Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right, we have 3 questions on the screen. Anything you want to answer first?
So the first one, how do we quantify impact? So now, when I was talking about production financing, so what we do, we borrow this from the past, okay? So in community members, in communities, there were leaders in each community, like village elders. They would sit and decide the next rotation of labor activities. So now, we don't have staff at grass, like salaried staff. So what we do, we work with stewards, and stewards are members of the community. So they are the ones that handhold the community members. So whenever the communities are meeting for rotation of labor, whatever it is that they do, is it building houses? Is it building roads or tilling farms? So they send that as a report. So what we do, we put in $1 into the pool, get their vouchers. So the vouchers in this case is backed by their commitments or their M&E services. So when the report is in, then we pay them back using the voucher. So really, the trades on the Sarafu.network platform, represent the reports that they've sent. So these trades in the eastern part of Kenya equals to 10 houses, 5 etc.
All right, that's awesome. Let's go to the next one. I think you have like 3 minutes to a question more. Yeah. Yeah. No. You take your time.
I'm going to address the first 2 in one answer. So how do you actually deal with onboarding? I'm going to speak now from we gave money away. From the perspective of good dollar UBI or free money has actually proved to be an incredibly effective onboarding method in terms of bringing people into Web3. And I think what's important about that is that we see that that onboarding mechanism then translates into people exploring a deeper financial life on-chain. And so obviously a good UX, simple onboarding experience, but actually making assets free and accessible and encouraging people to experiment has been critical to onboarding people, retaining people, and encouraging their ability and desire to experiment. There was one other question, but I forgot. Oh, it's about creating trust between
How can trust between local communities in emerging countries and the global crypto ecosystem can be unlocked?
So I think, in my experience, a lot of this is actually happening on the local and the community level, right? So it's through local community leaders that create the relevant education and context for the individuals that come along or the individuals that are also members of that community. And as builders, it's about having the relevant on and off ramps and the relevant tools that are specific to that particular country and country context. So I think that has actually proven to be on and off ramps, which come up all the time, and the wallet experience are the really critical bridges in the actual user experience when it goes from, someone using a very specific local app or currency such as Grassroots versus the cash out experience, aka fiat in my pocket, mobile minutes on my phone, Ethereum in my wallet.
All right. Anything, three obvious questions you want to answer? We have like 1 more minute if you want to. Yeah.
How do we deal with failures of trust within a group? Like, for our experience as grassroots economists, we work with already existing groups that have their own constitution, and they know how they deal with some of these challenges. So what you're doing is just adding technology to a practice that they already know, that has already been there. So most of the times the groups follow what they normally do, even without, like, amongst the community. Is it going to the chief? Is it going to the village elder? How do we sit down and sort that out? So mostly it's within the groups.
Want to do one more? If you have a short one, we have a 30-second. We can do it if you want to.
How could these initiatives be protected?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. How can initiatives be protected from bots? It's a great question. Certainly when you're giving free money away, it's something that you have to confront and deal with. Decentralized identity isn't, or decentralized secure unique identity is not a new problem, and there's multiple ways to skin the cat. I'd say actually what makes me the most excited now is like new solutions that are based off of existing community and trust that actually enable members of groups to verify one another and verify the unique identity of one another. And I think this is a space that many builders in Ethereum have been tackling for many years, and we're about to see a next generation of solutions that are actually much more usable for individuals to verify one another, and I think that's how bots will be dealt with moving forward.